to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Easter Sunday. I am Sherelle Higgins. I am your favorite co-host of this dynamic duo that is not here today. Even though Willita can take Sharon's part and say she is the oldest of this dynamic duo, I'm okay with that.
I'm representing the other half of that dynamic duo.
And so, as you can tell, I have a co-host with me today, Willita Hawkins. She has been so gracious to co-host the show with us several times. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, it's great to
I was so
have you.
excited when you reached out. I was like, yes.
I was so excited that you agreed because otherwise they would have been stuck with me doing this show by myself today. Now, of course, I would have been ready if I would have had to do the show by myself because I had something great lined up for you. And the very next time that Sharon is not able to do the show, I am going to share with you what I was going to do today. So, as we always do, we are going to kick off this show with a scripture. Yeah. I have asked Willita if she would be so kind to read the scripture for today. She actually identified the scripture and picked out the one she wanted to do for today.
I will be reading John 11:25-26. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this?
Yes.
Happy Resurrection Sunday.
Happy Resurrection Sunday. And so I'm going to assume that all of our audience knows about Easter and resurrection and why it's Resurrection Sunday. And so what I really want to do to start with is to talk about family Easter traditions.
Yes.
Not only traditions that you had as a young girl, but also traditions that you've had for your family. Mm-hmm. So what traditions did you all do when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, we went shopping the Saturday before Easter with everyone else in the neighborhood. So everybody was at the store. We got our patent leather shoes. We got our hair pressed that night. Took our baths, got our clothes out, laid your clothes out. You were ready for Easter the night before, sneaking in the Easter basket, getting the candy out, just making sure everything was prepared. I was raised by my grandparents. Okay. So it was very traditional and what we had to do and just routine. But for every year we did that. And then I found myself doing some of the things for my kids as they grew up.
So we did pretty much the same thing. And the only thing we did that you didn't mention, I'm sure you had this experience too, is the burns on your ear from the pressing comb and on the back of your neck and sometimes right here on your forehead because they had to get that, what they used to call that edge. And then the back, right, you had to get that kitchen, right? I didn't even realize I don't even have no kitchen and they had me convinced that I had a kitchen back then. And so we had to get our hair pressed that night. And, of course, we had to be flawless because that's the only way my mother would have us leave the house looking as flawless.
With the Easter bonnet, did y'all wear the Easter bonnet?
No, she probably didn't do that. She didn't play the Easter bonnet. She probably didn't think that was diva-fied. But we did have on our little bobby socks, right?
Yes,
and our cute
with
little
the
dresses.
lace around them.
Yes. We were all in our new outfits. I don't know how she did it back then with so many kids and making sure everybody had a new outfit for Easter. But we were all prepared to step outside the house on Easter. Now, honestly, I couldn't even tell you what my mother wore on Easter because she spent so much time and energy on what we had on and how we looked for Easter and making sure we were good, that as a mother, like most of us do, we put ourselves second to our kids. But we also, spent time dyeing Easter eggs. And so that was interesting. Now, when my kids were younger, like probably 5 and below, we did the whole dyeing the egg thing.
Hiding the eggs.
But at some point, right, for me as a mother, at some point I thought, now what's this thing really about?
Right.
Why am I doing this whole Easter thing? I don't think I ever, because I'm not a shopper, so I never really went out and bought my kids Easter outfits. Their grandparents usually took care of that. But at some point, I was just like, this is not really what Easter is supposed to be about. And so I made sure, I just stopped. I was like, I'm not doing no Easter dress, no Easter suit. I'm not going to church for Easter. Most people that don't usually go to church throughout the year, they go to church on Easter.
Yes.
And so I was like, at one point in my life when I had time on Sundays, because my kids didn't play soccer on Sundays, Jim and I and the kids would go to church. And so we would not go on Easter because everybody else would be there. And so we decided we'll just go the other Sundays and let them have Easter.
Yes, it was crowded today. It's always that way.
Right.
Easter Sunday, it's like, oh, okay, well, who is that? And never seen them before. Never seen them before. So it was like that today as well. And actually, it's funny because my children, as old as they are at the Easter egg hunt because they had an Easter egg hunt at church for the younger children. And so I left them there.
Okay. Yeah, no, my kids did no Easter egg hunt. Well, Jalen, he has food allergies and can't have eggs, so he was never caught up in that whole thing anyway.
Well, now the eggs are the plastic eggs.
Right,
you
put money in it.
And money and things like that. So,
yeah, they right. My son is at home laying down right now. That's what he was doing when I left the house. He went to the carnival last night, and he was on spring break this past week.
Yes.
He's been laying down the entire week with with the exception of doing a few chores here and there. He's been laying down, so there was no Easter egg hunt for him today. So let's shift gears here, because I really want to get into the discussion about Beyonce and her homecoming show and her songs associated with homecoming, and really take this opportunity to uplift HBCUs, right?
Woo-hoo.
Because both Willita and I have attended HBCUs, and it'll be interesting to kind of share experiences about what that really means to attend a HBCU. Did you really know prior to going to FAMU, Willita went to Florida A&M University, and of course you all know Sharon and I went to Virginia State University because we love it, right? And so, did you really know like what you were signing up for when you decided to go to FAMU?
I did, because my family all went to HBCUs.
Okay.
My early childhood was in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay.
And we lived directly across the street from Fayetteville State University. So my mother graduated from there. All of my uncles and aunts and cousins and everybody far removed graduated from Fayetteville State. So I grew up.
Y'all see how she put that North Carolina twang on Fayetteville? Go ahead, say that one more time.
Fayetteville.
No, that ain't how you said it.
So everyone, so I was familiar with the HBCU experience. So when I went to FAMU, man, let me tell you, it was life-changing. Oh, yeah.
Well, I had no idea, right? I just knew that Sharon, my older sister, Jackie, my older sister, they both went to Virginia State. And my mother really didn't want me to go to Virginia State because she felt like I needed to not be at the same school with my sisters and that I needed to take that opportunity to grow up. And she didn't think that me being at the school with two older sisters was going to afford me the opportunity to grow up. And so I wanted to go to Illinois State University, which is not an HBCU, and she felt like that was too close to home. And so it was, well, if I can't go to Illinois State, then I'm going to go to Virginia State. And she was like, well, I'll see you later. And so I ended up at Virginia State, but I had no idea that I was going to an HBCU, nor did I have any idea what that really meant. Because I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. Okay. I went to high school with all my high school friends were black. All my elementary school friends were black. And so I never lived in an environment where that wasn't the norm. Right. And so going to an HBCU just really didn't necessarily mean anything to me. And because we were first generation, for the most part, college students, we didn't know anybody who we could look up to say, oh, okay, y'all need to go to an HBCU. We just, picked Virginia State because Sharon did.
Right. Smart choice.
Right.
Smart
exactly.
choice.
Exactly.
And my experience was a little different. Like I said, growing up in Fayetteville, we were familiar with the HBCU experience. And my brother and a couple of my uncles went to Johnson C. Smith.
Okay.
Another uncle went to Morehouse. Then I had one cousin that went to UNCG. She was like one of the only ones. Well, no, the baby went to East Carolina. But in my early childhood in North Carolina, I went to school, and they had just started segregation. And so I was into segregation. So I was in school with the little white kids. And then when I moved to Camden, New Jersey, it was a total, like, what? And so I was fortunate because my track coach and one of the football coach, they both had graduated from FAMU. And so they were instrumental in me going to FAMU. But I wanted to go to Fisk.
Oh, okay.
And my mother said that was too far away from home. And I was like, well, where do you think Tallahassee, Florida is? But okay, so yeah.
That's interesting. I just had no clue. And it wasn't until after I graduated from Virginia State that I really got to a point where I could appreciate what a HBCU was, and my attending a HBCU, what that really meant. I had probably not a unique experience at a HBCU, because I know that there are many friends that I have who went to Virginia State, did not graduate from Virginia State, right? Either they went back much later in life and graduated from Virginia State, or they just never graduated from college, or for whatever reasons they chose to go to another school and graduate, but they still identify as a Trojan. And so for me,
if you have 15 hours or more, you're considered an alumni.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, all y'all Trojans out
y'all
there.
Dues, pay your alumni dues. All y'all that didn't graduate from FAMU, but you were there for 15 hours, you are a rattler.
Okay.
Join the Alumni Association.
But one of the things I really appreciate about going to Virginia State is the closeness that we have. The alumni is just so close, and I really appreciate that. So as most of us experienced in school, there were issues on the yard because we were growing up, right? We were all growing up together, and for whatever reasons you didn't like somebody, y'all might have had a beef or whatever, but all of that's been put to the side, and we are now more mature, and we can now accept each other. Grown and sexy. I like it. Yes. Act like a lady, think like a Trojan. That's what it say, y'all. So that was really good. And when I think about my experience at Virginia State, I went there when I started Virginia State. I was a pre-med major. And I really wanted to be a heart surgeon. And that is so funny because, and just in a different way, right? Because when you start to work with people to heal the heart, that's pretty good. I hadn't thought about it that way. I really wanted to be a heart surgeon, but when I got down to Virginia State and I got to, hanging out, my priorities just went straight. And I just wasn't focused, right? I was too busy kicking it than I was studying. And you can't be a pre-med major and just be out kicking it and not study. That's just not going to work. And when you add in the factor of not going to class, right?
See, we're not gonna tell those stories.
Yes, we are, because this is the HBCU experience.
It is.
There's nobody tapping you on your shoulder saying, "I'm gonna need you in class." Where have you been?
Yeah.
And so for me, I spent a lot of time my first 2 years just hanging out, and it was
all four.
You said all four?
All four.
Okay. Okay, well, my third year, I wasn't at Virginia State due to academic probation, right? So I just wasn't, and I ain't ashamed. It's whatever.
It's what it is.
Right. It's a part of my journey. And so I'm all good with it. But after that year that I set out, I believe it was probably a year and a half that I set out. When I did go back to Virginia State.
You were serious.
Oh, was I serious about it? Because my mother at that point, she was like, "You on your own.
Right.
I don't have nothing for you. Good luck to you."
And see, one of the things at FAMU, some of my friends, they had their transcripts sent to their mailbox there. My mother would not let me get my own transcript, so my transcript had to go home.
Right.
So I knew I could and back then you could meet people at the baggage claim. So when I got off the plane, I would look for the expression on her face. That's how I knew what kind of semester I had. If she had that look that said, "I'm gonna whip yo," and I was like, "Oh Lord, I must have got all F's." But and that was one of the things, and I think that really helped me because I knew that my transcript had to go home. And one thing I like about attending school in Florida was I knew that she wasn't just a car ride away.
Right.
It was going to take some effort and some planning because, we weren't wealthy. So she just couldn't decide, I'm just going to do a drive-by at Tallahassee, Florida to see what my daughter is doing.
My mama used to say, "Don't make me walk to Virginia." And I used to be thinking to myself, I like to see it happen. You walking from Chicago to Virginia. Let me see it.
Oh, wow. And it was an experience I wouldn't trade for the world. And I encourage young kids now, even if you are going to a local university, stay on campus.
Yes.
It is nothing like that experience.
Absolutely.
I have some friends that are lifelong friends. Just that experience and staying on. I got to the point where I didn't even come home. Like during the holidays, I was in Jacksonville.
Yes.
I was in Miami. I was in Atlanta. I was with my friends, and their families became my family.
Right.
And it's like that to the day. And I must give the Trojans some love because FAMU, let me tell y'all, I could not make it to homecoming. And my sister Sharon invited me. She said, "Well, why don't you come on to Virginia State homecoming?" And I got my FAMU t-shirt and I went to Virginia State homecoming and I almost thought I was at FAMU. I mean, the color they did copy. They got orange, no green, but I was representing. But it's just the HBC love. It's just a family environment.
It really is.
And it was just really awesome and just wonderful. So if you've never had an opportunity to experience the HBCU homecoming, to experience what Beyonce displayed on her movie on Netflix, you have to go and experience. I mean, listen, if you're in the DMV area, come on over there to Howard.
Right. It's right across the street from where we are.
We played Howard.
And our broadcast engineer went to Howard, y'all, so he's excited right now. They still trying to figure out who's the real HU, but we won't get into that.
And you played Howard for their homecoming.
Okay.
And when I tell you it was a FAMU homecoming, man, we had Georgia Avenue packed out. And it was just nothing but love, just HBCU love, just all around. So I just, get out there and experience it.
It is really like no other. Going to an HBCU, particularly for, anybody really. For me, coming from an all African American community, going to an all African American school, it really taught me how to balance life, right?
You had no choice.
Right. I didn't have no choice, but it honed my skills on balancing life. Because at some point after those 3.5 years of going to Virginia State for 2 years, sitting out for a year and a half, and then having to go back and having made up my mind that, okay, I'm serious about this thing. I need to get up out of here in the next 2 years. So I basically did 4 years of college in practically 2 years. I was like, okay, I got to get up out of here. And, it taught me during those 2 years that I was serious about school that I needed to learn how to balance life. I was working. I was in school full time. I was taking anywhere from 18 to 24 semester hours a semester because I had a lot of ground to make up. And so it taught me how to just really balance life and make sure that I was focused on the prize. And the prize was to get my degree, right? Even though nobody's asked me about that damn degree since I got it, right? You just put it on the paper and say you have it, and they go with it.
Right. And look, I have to give Virginia Union University a shout out because I was fortunate enough to attend 2 HBCUs. I have 2 masters from Virginia Union University, and so I have to give the Panthers some love. And their homecoming experience, it's okay. They're a little smaller than FAMU and Virginia State, but they know how to party too. And so I give some love to Virginia Union University as well. And you know what? I recently found out that UDC was considered an HBCU. Did you know that UDC is an HBCU? My BFF Doreen graduated from UDC. My husband has his law degree from UDC. Okay. And my girlfriend, so fine, she graduated from UDC. And when I was looking up something on UDC, I was like, a HBCU? I didn't know that.
I don't think I knew that either.
Yes, it is. It's a HBCU.
Well, I'll give Virginia Union some love because my daughter went to Virginia Union for her freshman year. And she and I ironically have the same kind of college story, but we won't get into that. But she went to Virginia Union, and I see that her and her girlfriends that she met at Virginia Union are still very close, even though none of them go to Virginia Union at this point. So it's really nothing like an HBCU experience. Not only did it teach me how to balance life, it also introduced me to my husband, right? I didn't go to Virginia State thinking, I'm at college, I'm supposed to find a husband, and we're supposed to live happily ever after. That just happened to be what God's plan was for my life. And I thank him for it, because when I think about the past 35 years that Jim and I have been together, and I think about the different stages of life that you go through from the age of 18 to the age of 52, you go through a lot and you learn a lot. And as you get older, you're supposed to know better and you're supposed to do better, which we have. And I'm thankful for that. And so it's interesting that there's a lot of Virginia State couples still together, and every time I see it on Facebook, I just feel a sense of pride. Right.
And my girlfriend, your girlfriend, Roz, is watching on Facebook Live. Hey, Roz.
Roz Garvin. Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's a couple, right?
Yeah, she didn't go to Virginia State, but her husband, Tim, did.
Oh, okay.
He went to Virginia State, and Tim was also in our wedding. He was one of the groomsmen in our wedding. And so, but it's just so many, couples that has been together since Virginia State. And so, when you look at the news media and they talk about, couples, particularly African American couples who, don't stay together, and it's a lot of negativity around it. Every time I see somebody post on Facebook that it's their anniversary and I know that they met at Virginia State, it just warms my heart.
Yes.
Because that is just like, I'm just like, ain't nothing like a Virginia State couple. And there's so many of us, and so many of us that's, stood the test of time. And when I think about, Wilma and Noah and Kathy and Frankie and me and Jim and it's just so many of them, right? I can't even name them all. When I think about I know what me and Jim went through over the last 35 years. And so when I see those couples and I see that they still together, I can only imagine what they've gone through as well. And so it's nothing like being, having met your soulmate or your life mate at the same HBCU that you attended. Even though back when y'all was on campus, y'all know what happened on campus. It wasn't me, right? Because I was innocent and sweet and naive out of Chicago. But I'm just saying the other people.
The other people.
The other people at Virginia State who was creeping in the night. I ain't calling no names. I'm just saying some of the other people.
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. Listen.
But go ahead.
But I was just getting ready to mention Beyonce's movie, Netflix movie special. A FAMU Rattler played a major part in that. Mr. Don, and he graduated class of '85. With me at FAMU, and so that just gave me a sense of pride as well to see the impact that the Marching 100 often imitated, never duplicated. Participate with Beyonce. That just gave me a sense of pride, and all of the HBCUs.
Absolutely
awesome. It was just awesome.
Yeah, I saw a quote from somebody from Virginia State on that same special. So I was just like, of course, like you, feeling very prideful, right? Mm-hmm. Jim and I was down in Petersburg yesterday, and we rode through the campus. And we just kind of sat for a while and looked at the baseball game that was going on. And Jim got out the car because he's Mr. Social Butterfly. I was just randomly started talking to some dude who was there trying to enjoy the baseball game. And I was sitting in the car and I was just looking around and I was just so happy and so prideful that, I attended that school and I was thinking about a lot of the memories, that I have on that campus. It was just phenomenal. And when I took a picture of Foster Hall, which is our student union, it almost brought tears to my eyes because, I think about the young Sherelle on that campus, and all of my friends that I stay connected to via Facebook, Virginia State alumni parties, whatever. Just having memories of seeing them on campus and in the student union and what, we used to do. I mean, it was just great. It was just a great, great experience for me. And I don't know that I had any idea how Virginia State was going to impact my life. Mm-hmm. I have a shirt that says, I'm living my best life, Virginia State University, or Virginia State taught me how to live my best life. And so, when I think about that, I'm just like, wow.
And it really did.
It really did.
It made us who we were, because just think about it. We were children. I spent my 18th birthday on the campus of FAMU. So when I got there, I was 17. When I graduated from high school in June, the very next day, I was on a flight out of Camden.
Okay.
My mother was not playing.
Okay.
I was out. I went through the summer program. And, it raised us. Mm-hmm. It made us who we are today. Mm-hmm. It did.
It really did.
I
know.
Did, yeah.
I did a lot of maturing on Virginia State campus. I can't even tell all the stories that made me mature.
Look, write a book. We'll write a book, okay?
I can't even tell it in a book. If I tell it in the book, I'm going to be in trouble.
Sharon said the quote from on the Beyonce special was from Reginald Lewis.
Right. Mm-hmm. And 1965, was it? 85. I was drawing a blank on his name and what the quote was, but I remember seeing it and thinking that, it's so many HBCUs, and I just don't want us to forget, number one, why HBCUs became about.
Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Not only why they came about, but also making sure that our blue chip athletes start to go to these HBCUs.
Yes.
Because if you're a great athlete, you're going to get looked at regardless.
Right.
And so, as alumni, we have to support our athletic programs.
And that's what I was getting ready to say. I know on the FAMU alumni group message, one of the major debates is about that, about what do we need to do to get these major athletes into these HBCUs. But the alumni have to put in that financial support.
Absolutely.
We have to support our universities. I mean, it's one thing for you to jump on Facebook and complain about it and not support your university financially. But that's the only way that we can make it happen. And we have to recruit. You know, we have to recruit, and we have to encourage our children to go there, because a lot of the kids, you know, they grow up, all they see is, okay, well, I want to go to Kentucky, I want to go to Ohio State or whatever,
those big
Alabama, Oklahoma, whatever these big schools are, and that's all they see, and they have no idea how a HBCU can impact their lives, because the HBCUs, we have some great professional athletes as well.
Oh, absolutely.
That were in the NFL, the
NBA,
absolutely. Baseball, you know,
and every major league.
And every major league. I know, you know, FAMU has some greats, you know. In football, Nate Newton played for the Cowboys. I'm not even going to start calling names because there's quite a bit of them. But, you know, in basketball, baseball, listen. And so we have to recruit our kids and steer them in a direction, because it's up to us, the alumni that have graduated from these HBCUs, to push our children to go. Because my daughter, I said, you got to go to FAMU if you don't go but one semester. Listen, somebody got to go to FAMU. And then I was fortunate, because when she went on a college tour last year, she really enjoyed it.
Okay, good.
And my friends did embarrass her, but it was okay. It was okay. She was like, Mom, I was on the set and people were just calling my name, and I was like, how do they know me? And I was like, girl, I had everybody looking for you. You know, but we have to encourage our children to go to HBCUs. And even if she chooses not to go to FAMU, go to a HBCU.
Well, you know, for Jalen, a lot of the HBCUs don't play soccer. You know, that's the downside.
Yeah,
and so we got to get our HBCUs involved in every sport. Because, you know, if HBCUs play soccer, I would steer my son to a HBCU. It wouldn't be no problem with that. I would be like,
it's one that plays soccer.
Yeah, I'm sure it is one. But
find it.
Let's find it. Yeah, because, you know, and they got to be willing to give up some money. Right? Our HBCUs got to be competitive. And, you know, they can be competitive if the alumni support them financially and designate the money for the athletics program, right? Because the more money that's designated for that program, the more, you know, they can offer these kids scholarships. Now, depending on which D1, D2, D3 school the school is in, you know, it dictates whether or not they can offer athletic scholarships, but everybody can offer academic scholarship,
right.
And we get to set what those academic scholarships are, and so we need to do, you know, better at, you know, making sure that we represent all of the sports so that our kids can, you know, we as alumni can gear our kids towards the HBCUs, because we know what type of experience they're going to have.
Yes.
I know with Jalen, he goes to a very diverse school, and he's lived in a very diverse community his entire life, so he doesn't know what it's like to live in an all African American community and to grow up in that environment. So for him to go to a HBCU, I think he would learn a lot.
Yeah.
You know, when I think about, you know, some of the men who went to Virginia State that was in school when I was in school, they came out of New York, and they came out of Ohio and all of these different urban areas. You know, they came down to Virginia State and they brought the culture with them.
Yes.
And so when I think about them bringing that New York culture to Virginia State, it was great, right? I started to wear a shirt today that said the class of 1984, a couple years ago, we got T-shirts for our reunion that said Virginia State University class of 1984, and on the back it said Funky Fresh Live, because that's what we used to say back then, right? And so they brought that New York culture to Virginia State. We brought the Chicago culture to Virginia State.
And listen, we had a DC crew. Shout out to the DC crew, Bo Ellis and Tim and all of y'all. They bought the Go-Go to FAMU. What? Listen, we had the Go-Go for life at FAMU, and it's everybody just bringing all of those experience. Like you said, the New York crew, we had the Jersey Stars. I mean, the people from who don't realize that DC is south and not north, you know, just had to understand that, you know, and just, you know, everybody from everywhere bringing all of their life experiences. into one place. It's just beautiful.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is about athletes and HBCUs. It's not like it was when we were in school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You got to come with your academic game.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you have to come with your academic game. It's no more where you can have a 2.0
right.
and you just getting on the football team.
Right.
And then there may be some that may do that, but you know, you really have to have your academic game.
Absolutely.
And it's just not like that no more because the NCAA rules have really changed, and you know, and we just have to make sure our kids are up to par and up to standard so that they can get in these universities. And a lot of universities, you just can't get in the universities with a low GPA and a low SAT score. So they don't care how well you are, how well you perform in in athletics. You have to be able to perform academically to represent their university.
Absolutely. And I talk to my son about that all the time. And every time I get an email from a coach or somebody, you know, trying to promote their soccer ID camp, and they talking about athletes and their grades, I send it to my son and make sure he reads it, because I'm like, this is not like it used to be.
No.
You know, you need to be a student and then an athlete.
Right.
And for Jalen, I just really believe in my soul that he needs to be an athlete in order to stay focused on being a student.
Yeah.
And you know, because he's going to need that structure. And it just is what it is, right? And as a parent, you got
athlete teaches balance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, just trying to figure out, you know, okay, if I got to do, you know, 12 hours of studying time and report that in, how do I get that in?
Right.
You know, and you know, make sure that when you're on a team sport like that, you tend to hang out with members of that team. And so, you know, they tend to get together and figure out, you know, when they're going to, you know, study versus when they're going to hang out.
A lot of athletic programs, they have study halls for their students too.
Absolutely. I know one of the schools that's looking at Jalen, they have a mandatory 5-hour study hall that they have to do with with one of the coaches, and then they have a mandatory study halls that they have to do outside that coach, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I know that will greatly benefit Jalen because he lazy just like the rest of these teenagers out here, and he gonna try to skate by the skin of his teeth, right? And he gonna be all right with it.
But he knows what he has to do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what's one like really fun memory you have from FAMU?
Oh man, when the Omegas had the Mardi Gras in the gym. That was amazing. I was a freshman. Okay. So can you imagine a freshman going to an Omegas Mardi Gras? It was just amazing. I'll just leave it at that. It was just amazing. That was just one. That was just my freshman year. That was just one. Oh, and George Clinton. George Clinton got banned from Tallahassee.
Oh, yes. From the whole city?
From the whole city.
Okay. Okay.
And if you know George Clinton, you know why he got banned.
Yes, beam him up, Scotty. So for me at Virginia State, like as you, I just have so many fun memories that, but I just remember going to a party that was given by a social group on campus called the Wild Boys.
Wow.
And my husband was a wild boy. And initially the girlfriends weren't invited. And, you know, back then I was straight out of Chicago, so I had a whole different type of personality than I have right now. So,
really?
So when I found out about it, me and the other girlfriends, I found out first. I was like, hey, y'all heard about this party? Come on, we going to the party. Because I was like, let me see what's going on up in this party that the girlfriends can't come. And so the guys, the Wild Boys, I'm telling too much about y'all right now, but whatever. The Wild Boys, they had gotten these T-shirts made, and the T-shirt was a big rat that was holding his big penis in his hand, talking about here, kitty, kitty. And when we got up in the party, some of the Wild Boys just had their drawers on with this T-shirt, and I was like, "Where's Jim? Where is he? Because I need to see. Because if he up in here with his drawers on and a T-shirt, it's going down." So I could thankfully say that I didn't have to show out that night.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.
But I end up having a great time at the party, right?
Did Jim have fun at the party?
I don't know if he had fun. But I had fun. So, Willita, did you pledge at FAMU?
No, I didn't.
Why didn't you pledge?
Me by me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What does that mean?
Me by me. Well, at Florida A&M, I waited. I was interested in pledging, and I waited to try to pledge my senior year. Mm-hmm. And coming out, they really wasn't accepting a lot of seniors at that time, so I wasn't fortunate enough to pledge.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't pledge either.
No.
For 2 reasons. Well, 3. One reason is at the time that I even thought I was interested in pledging, I didn't have the grades to pledge. Let's just be honest. 2 is when I did have the grades to pledge, I was already over it, and I was like,
right.
And then 3 is I already have a bunch of sisters, so I was like, last thing I need is a whole bunch more. And then if I just had to come up with a 4th one, when I heard about the type of stuff that they do back then, pledging, I knew I wouldn't be successful because I was like, if somebody slapped me, I'm slapping them back.
Listen.
So, yeah, I knew I wasn't going to be good at that.
You have a point there.
But I did pledge a sweetheart group for the Grooves, and we were the Precious Gems. Mm-hmm. And I have very little recollection about that, which is interesting. I have a picture of us when we were out in a park stepping, but I don't remember very much else about that sweetheart group. And I don't know why that is, even though I'm sure my husband, he can tell you everything because he got a lot of jokes, but I really don't remember a lot about that. But I remember some of the grooves, right? And I remember we had a great time. I just don't remember much about being a groove sweetheart. I don't know, chalk it up to the heart or the brain or something. I don't know.
So we kind of did. I was kind of into my own thing. I already knew because I was confident in who I was. Mm-hmm. I knew who I was. I didn't need. What I found was some of the women who pledged for identity.
Right.
I knew who I was. I was confident in who I was. Most of my friends pledged. I supported them when they pledged. I hid them in my apartment when they pledged. So, I was very familiar with the sorority, with the sororities, and nothing against them, but I did my own thing, I attended the parties and supported where I could, and hung with my girls.
Right.
And that was that. But,
none of my sisters pledged in undergrad. Of course, Sharon is a Delta now and has been for a long time, but she didn't pledge in undergrad. Jackie didn't pledge in undergrad. Actually, none of my sisters who went to college pledged in undergrad. So that's interesting to me. But I knew that just probably wasn't the thing for me back then. Cause back then I was triple S.
And what exactly does triple S mean?
Southside Chicago.
Look, my roommate said the block parties, How could I forget? Tiki, don't tell about the block parties.
Oh, I tell you, one of the things that the HBCUs got on lock, though, all of them, are the step shows.
The step shows, yes.
They have those on lock. Yes. All of the fraternities and sororities, they have that on lock. Yes. They can step. I remember my nephew, he went to Virginia State, and he pledged Omega Psi Phi. And then they did a step show up in this area. It was some type of Sprite sponsored step show, and they ended up winning.
Wow.
So, that's one good thing. And when I looked at Beyonce's homecoming video, it was interesting to see them doing that type of stepping that you see just out on the yard.
Yeah.
So that was good. It took me back right to Virginia State, either behind Foster Hall or on front, as we used to call the front campus.
And I do have to give a shout out to my two roommates because they were two of, if anybody knows anything about FAMU, we don't have majorettes or dancers. We have the flag corps. And for years, it was only men. And two of my roommates, Deneen Crawford and Janice Edwards, were the two of the first females.
Oh, cool.
To be on the flag corps.
Oh, wow.
In the Marching 100. So, yeah. And so that was, part of the HBCU experience, watching the step shows, watching the band practice. I mean, that was a whole party all by itself, just going down on the patch to watch the band practice and the step shows. And it was just,
well, at Virginia State.
Do it all again.
Woo, girl. I can't do it all again. Well, at Virginia State, we have the famous Woo Woos, right?
Yes,
our cheerleaders.
yes.
They are BOSS. Always have been and always will be. That was, I think, just watching the Woo Woos was really the first time that I experienced that type of cheerleading outside of watching it on TV. And so it was. I wish I had known that was a possibility because when I was growing up, I was a cheerleader, and I just didn't know that was even a possibility. And that that level of competition was available. So by the time I saw the Woo Woos, I thought, oh, okay, it was too late. I was already kicking it.
Sharon asked the question, what was the most intriguing thing you saw in Beyonce's Homecoming?
The most intriguing thing I saw, I don't know. For me, I like to see famous people just in their natural environment, right? For me, it was more about seeing her and Jay-Z with their 3 kids just loving on each other. I mean, because we already know Beyonce is boss. So we already know she can sing, she can perform. She's a top performer out here. We already know that about her. But her private life seems to be really private, which I can respect. But I enjoyed watching the different shots of her and Jay-Z with their kids, just being regular people, taking care of their family. So I just, that for me, that did it.
And to allow us into that space.
Right.
That was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Beyonce is a performer.
Yeah.
You can't take none from her.
Yeah.
She's a performer. She's a perfectionist.
Yes.
And, as I watched the homecoming event, it was interesting just to see how much goes into that. And as she was narrating throughout the video about how much time they took putting that show together and the commitment that's needed to pull something like that off, and what she, just her thoughts about it, what she was looking for. She wasn't just looking for anybody to be in her video. She was very strategic. Right. She was very strategic about that. And she wanted people who looked like her to be one of those 200 people that was behind her. So for me, I think that's great, and we need more entertainers who have a platform to make a difference, to be making a difference. And I think she made a difference in that video.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
I also liked, this kind of sat with me for a while after I heard her say it. When she was pregnant, she was 215 pounds the day she had the twins.
But I was like, when they showed her,
she never looked like she was
30. I'm like, well, what happened?
Hey, she said it took her some time, and the commitment that it took her, because that's her business, right? And she knew that she couldn't come back and be Beyonce,
right,
and carrying all this extra weight. She just couldn't. She couldn't. And because that's her brand, right?
Yeah.
And so the notion that she went 8, 9, however many months she did without any fish and dairy and carbs and alcohol and meat, I'm thinking to myself, what's left? Right. Lettuce and apples. But that's a heck of a commitment, right?
Yes, it is.
And so, how many people can commit to something like that for so long. But she talked about, the impact of that on her body, and how much that, what she really needed to do, and how tired she was and how hungry she was. And, she was just a regular person at that point.
Right. Sharon says, for me, it was a demonstration of all varieties of art form, ballet, stepping, drummers, different sizes, skin colors, etc. It was just powerful, and that too. That was it was, and I really enjoyed the narration part.
Okay.
Because it was more than just a show. She actually walked you through the phases, and then her explanation of why she wanted to do it, because she didn't have an opportunity to attend an HBCU, but she just wanted everybody to. She did. Her father went to Howard, and I was like, oh, wow, and he's an Omega. And so she was familiar with the HBCUs and their experience, but she just wanted everyone to experience. So I really enjoyed that.
I like when she said her HBCU experience was Destiny's Child. And her college experience was traveling all over the world performing. And life was her teacher.
Wow.
I was just like, wow, the things we take for granted, just, being able to, something as simple as being able to come to the studio every Sunday. Right? She can't even do things like that without people, accosting her and trying to get her, autograph and get her attention and want to take her picture and want to take pictures with her. I just can't even imagine living that kind of lifestyle. Even though at the women's conference, people was asking me for my autograph, and I really liked that. That was all right with me, but I don't know that I could do that every day, day in and day out. I start scrabbling all kind of all kind of stuff on their paper. Leave me alone. Go sit down somewhere.
No, you would love it. You would love it.
Yeah. I don't know. Day in and day out, I don't know. That's tough. And with Jim and his personality and me and my personality, I don't know, we probably wouldn't survive. But, I tell you, let me ask you this. What teacher immediately comes to mind when you think about FAMU? And why?
Sekou Ribe. He was a Muslim, and he taught, I think he taught COBOL, because I was a computer information systems major.
Okay.
And when I had his class, it was a rough time for me. I was at my ultimate party life. And I came to class to take my final exam. And when I tell you I was twisted in a knot, he looked at me, he said, go to your dorm, lay down, and come back to my office and take your exam. And that saved me. Okay. Because I don't even know if I would have been able to write my name, but I knew that I had to show up.
Right.
And I don't know if any other teacher that I had would have done that for me.
Right.
Would have done that for me. And he was a little younger than some of my other professors, but I'll never forget that. I'll never forget Dr. Sekou, because he said, listen, you need to go to sleep.
I'm going to help you help you.
He said, I'm going to help you. And that was just so profound. I'll never forget that. When I walked across that stage and I saw him, I was like, thank you.
Well, I tell you, the one that comes to my mind is Dr. McClenny. Dr. McClenny was the dean of the public administration department, and when I tell you he connected with the students on so many different levels that he knew that I dated Jim, and so when I came to class, he was all over it. He was not accepting anything, and one of his famous sayings is, "You can't snow the snow machine." Right. So
I like that.
And even, I don't know if it was 15, 20 years later, when Kiki went there, he was still there. And when he found out she was my sister and Jim's sister-in-law, he was like, no, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell your sister on you. Keep playing. He really impacted, I think, all the public administration majors at Virginia State. I don't think there's a one who went there when he was there that will say that he did not impact their life in some kind of way. He was a great professor, and he's now he has dementia, and so my heart breaks for him for that, because he did so much good for so many African American students that he just deserves to live a healthy and fulfilled life. And so to Dr. McClenny, I say hats off to you for the positive impact you had in our lives.
Wow.
So, of course, we are down to less than a minute.
Oh, wow. We're out of time.
Yeah, time go by really quickly. And so let me just say this. I'm going to let Walida say her last thought about FAMU, and then I'm going to close it out with my last thought about Virginia State.
My last thought about FAMU is I just love FAMU. I love FAMU. It's an experience like no other. And I just encourage any and everybody, if you get an opportunity, just go to FAMU, go visit. Take your children to visit, because it's just a beautiful campus. It sits on the top of 7 hills, and so you will get your exercise walking from class to class. Well, nowadays, maybe the kids drive.
They
I don't
probably
know,
do.
but I didn't have a car,
Yeah,
so
they
we
probably
walked.
do.
We caught the bus, but it was just an awesome experience, and I wouldn't change it for nothing in the world. It used to bother me when I look at my classmates that actually went to class and did their works and graduated summa cum laude. I graduated, thank you, Lord. And I didn't do too bad for myself, so I'm very proud. I am a proud FAMU alumni.
There
Class
you go.
of 85.
Yes. And here's how we're going to close the show. VSU. I love it, I love it, I love it. VSU. I love it, I love it, I love it. All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3:00 p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.